Ahoy, long time no see. I lament that this video took so long to make. I've been busy lately. Alright, on the last video I told you that this episode would be about the current state of the game. Thing is, after the last video I spent over a whole month not working on RPyS in any way, so I had to go back to my written notes to remember where I left the project. In the process I realized how sloppy my notes were, so I spent some time rewriting them in a clearer manner, which would help me keep better track of the mechanics as well as serve me as a way of practicing for communicating them to you in videos like this. That said, I am not going to explain everything that RPyS currently is in this video. You see, I'm trying to make these videos shorter so I do not die as much in the process of making them, so while I have several subjects I would like to talk about, this video will only be about the formulas for calculating damage. I think they are a good example of my design philosophy for this game. Damage calculation works a bit differently for different kinds of attacks. Physical melee attacks, that is, melee attacks dealt by bodies, are the simplest, so I will explain those first and then compare with the rest for contrast. When attacking, you generally have to check if you can hit the target, then if you can penetrate the target's armor, and then based on the results to those questions you get to calculate the damage. Mind you, this system treats dodging an attack and blocking it with your armor as two different concepts. It's not like D&D and its variants where you have one number that tells you how good you are at not receiving damage in general, and that accounts for both your dodging and your blocking. In RPyS, in order to deal damage, you have to succeed in two separate regards. As far as I understand, GURPS also does this, but instead of making the distinction between dodging and blocking, it makes it between your skill and the skill of the target. In other words, you may deal no damage because the enemy avoids it like a boss, or because you hit like shit. Back to RPyS, you do the hit check. The main factors here are your accuracy stat versus the enemy evasion stat, plus some dice for randomness. If you critically fail, you miss entirely. For other results, you move on to the penetration check. Although critically succeeding or failing non-critically will give you a modifier of +6 or -6 respectively to the penetration check. The penetration check works basically the same, except we swap out accuracy for penetration and the enemy's evasion for their armor. Roll the dice, check the result, and that tells you the attack's overall degree of success. But now, how do we know the raw damage? Games designed by sane people usually just tell you the weapon's base damage plus a die plus your strength or something like that. They do it like that because it's simple and fun. My game demands that you solve this equation. Alright, this formula might look intimidating, but really I made a spreadsheet that calculates the result automatically. It's a bit tedious to input the attacker and defender stats, but I am not completely insane. I provide comforts like this. Let's look at the formula in more detail. Your attack stat is not your strength. You can be very strong, but not know how to throw a proper punch. B is the enemy's defense, so basically the game is telling you that if your attack is twice the enemy's defense, you will deal double the damage. Next up is protection, which is added to defense if the penetration check is failed, non-critically. And potency is a stat provided by your body and weapon. This is what represents the body's strength. You can also think of it as the attack's raw damage before it is processed by the statistics of any character. And that's it, that's how you calculate a melee physical attack. Now regarding other types of attacks, when you use a spectre to attack, the potency is determined by how many will points, think mana, you spend on the attack, and you use the power stat instead of the attack, and integrity instead of penetration. Unless your spectre is wielding a weapon, in which case the weapon's penetration overrides the spectre's integrity. When the spectre is the target instead of the attacker, integrity acts both as defense and armor, and the damage is usually taken in will points. Then there's projectile attacks, which derive their potency from the projectile's kinetic energy, which is a different can of worms which we will not be opening today. And then there are spells, on which I still have to work a lot. They barely exist in the game so far. Boom, done. Now you more or less understand how damage is calculated in this game. I'm not going to lie, part of the reason that I chose this topic to talk about in this video is because I could show you more spreadsheets. Anyways, I'ma crawl back into my hole and keep pumping out some mechanics and art and whatnot. In the meantime, please, do tell me which subjects you would like to hear me talk about next. Feel free to ask questions about the system, the setting, give me money, preferably in exchange for nothing, because that would be very easy for me. Although you can commission art from me too if you want. Just message me on my social media. I should notice your message and respond to it within 1 to 1 trillion business days. But seriously, jokes aside, do tell me in which direction you want me to take these devlogs. I am not entirely sure what you want to hear about the project, so your feedback is very welcome. And I do want to find a way to make money from my art, so if you are interested in me doing something for you, please check the links below. Now I am going to not work on RPyS for a while, so do not expect a new video anytime soon. Perhaps not until 2025, for example. I might make some speed paints or animatics though, like the ones already on my channel, but that's it. Anyways, thank you for sticking thus far. I hope that you stick for more. Doodles!